still hard to believe what happened to the city. There are a lot of people still there who need help, kids and elderly people. It's hard to believe that in the 21st century we're seeing the destruction of a nation, of children, of cities. I will never believe that people could do this accidentally, that they didn't know what they're doing, because maternity hospitals, clinics and shelters were destroyed intentionally. They were bombed from the air. Those strikes couldn't be accidental. They were planned. How is it possible to understand this? I don't know how to understand it. I don't know how to accept it.
Давай мы развернемся. Так, Санечка, как тут кривляешься.
My story is interesting because in 2014, when Russia first invaded Ukraine, I left Donetsk with my daughter. I moved to Donetsk when I was a child because my family fled war in Baku. Now we fled from Mariupol without my oldest daughter because we got separated from her there. We're trying to find her now. On February 24th, we woke up to the sound of bombing because Russia started attacking our side of the city. We didn't really think about leaving because I was in my 34th week of pregnancy. We thought that this is 21st century and the conflict will be solved in a couple of days. Then our friends in Zaporizhzhia said, "Come to us," but we said no because I was about to have our baby. We live in-house and my husband had prepared a room for us in our basement. So we started going down there when there were intense attacks. We don't have a car, so on March 3rd my husband found a neighbor with a car to take me to the hospital. By the time I got there, the hospital had already been hit, so there was no electricity or running water there. I went into labor on March 3rd, and on March 4th my son was born. He was born prematurely. When I was in labor, the hospital was being attacked, but the doctors and nurses kept working. Like I already said, the hospital didn't have water or electricity, but they were basically out of the medical supplies they needed as well. Volunteers would bring what they had, and the doctors and nurses didn't leave the hospital. They just lived there. There were a lot of pregnant women there, around 20 who were about to give birth, and around 20 with newborn babies. My son was born in the hospital, but the next day we all moved to the basement of the hospital and lived there, because it was very intense there. A missile landed on the property and blew out all of the windows in the hospital. While I was there, my husband walked more than 6 miles through shelling to our house to find our daughter and my mom, but they weren't home. They left a note saying that they were in a shelter, but they didn't say where. On March 8th, we left the hospital and hid in a shelter under a church for a while. On March 9th or 10th, we heard an airstrike near us. We heard a plane fly over and drop a bomb, and there was a huge explosion.
It was the most terrifying scene. I saw the main entrance of the maternity hospital was totally destroyed, and I saw an incubator like they use for premature babies lying there. Usually there were a lot of cars on the property. Husbands of some of the women at the hospital had organized a little camp there to provide wood for fires and water for the hospital. I've never seen anything like it before in my life, but after the explosion, it looked like the tops of the trees had been cut off and the cars had been totally smashed.
We didn't have cell service, so we didn't know about green corridors or the chance to evacuate. So on March 17th, we decided to take a risk and try to leave the city. We asked some people from the church to take us with them. We were in different cars, but the only thing that was important to us was the chance to leave. On our way out of the city, there was still shelling, even though our caravan was trying to evacuate. A lot of cars on the road were on fire. Even though the situation was really hard, the thing that really impressed me was that people in the towns along the way came out to the road with food and water and banners offering a place to stay or at least take a shower. A lot of them came to our car and said, "Please take some food, you have a baby." Those people knew that our caravan had come from Mariupol, where people were hungry and thirsty. So even though they knew that checkpoints were closed, where Russian soldiers were standing with big guns, they still came and offered us food and water. It was very touching. I saw it and cried. It seems like the other side of the evil we saw.
It was black and white. On one hand, there is evil, and on the other hand, there's this thing that might seem insignificant, but is actually real goodness.